Welcome to Yoga for You, a channel tailored to helping you discover your very own unique yoga practice. Hey friends, welcome back to this episode of the Sagacity Spotlight. Today's guest is Kristin. She's going to come on and talk to us about metta, vipassana, other forms of meditation, chair yoga, compassion, empathy, all these beautiful things that she really does embody, I'm sure you'll feel. Please feel free to check out her organization, Community Yoga Initiative, as well as some of her chair yoga videos. All will be linked below. Thanks for being here. Really hope you enjoy this one. So much love. Namaste. Hello, my dear friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Sagacity Spotlight. Today's guest is my good friend, Kristin Varner. She is a very devout, very much of a lover of yoga and loves bringing it to the community and the people. So it's an honor to have her here. Welcome, Kristin. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Ty. It's so good to see you, and thanks for having me.
Of course. I've always loved you so much. We share Libra love through and through. We've always connected in that way, how we love others and ultimately love ourselves too. So it's beautiful to have that reflection face to face here for the world to see.
The feeling is mutual. Love you so much.
So good. Love you too. So we're going to get started today with kind of what I introduced, the fact that you are such a big asset in the community. You've founded or co-founded Community Yoga Initiative down in the Riverside area, and that has I've literally watched it grow from 5 or 6 people attending to, pre the last year, turning away so many people because you can't fit mat to mat in an auditorium. You're literally in a church auditorium and you're having to turn people away. Tell me about that a little bit.
Yeah, and you've been such a great part of it, watching it grow and being part of our community yoga community. Well, I think the idea for Community Yoga Initiative just stems from lack of yoga community that didn't perpetuate a certain type of marginalization. It's so unfortunate that yoga communities can be really a source of marginalization based on ableism and racism and just not being inclusive. And so, seeing that need, a couple of friends and I wanted to see if we could just make a space that was inclusive and accessible for anyone in the community to come, that doesn't cost $20 a yoga class, and that people felt like no matter their body size or their background or their situations, that they would be welcome in a yoga space. So that's what we created. And it did start off with just a couple people. Like, I think there was 3 of us for a long time. But we would come and we would practice, and we really enjoyed yoga and we enjoyed practicing together. And, over a few months, we got a few more people, started coming, word started getting out. And at one point there was like a tipping point where, we only had so much space and enough space to hold a certain amount of people. And we really had to navigate that cautiously. And not wanting to turn people away. But so that's where it kind of started from, is just getting away from this idea of yoga as being something for able-bodied, certain body size, certain ability, certain look to come. That yoga is for everyone who wants to try it. We love yoga and we want to share it with everybody. And I was lucky enough to be surrounded by some beautiful people who loved yoga just as much and that wanted to share it just as much as I did. So that was really a grace in my life.
Yeah, it's obvious too, in a way, when things flow so easily. I mean, there's always that testing period, right? Whether it's the universe or whether it's just a community that's like, oh, we'll see if they got this. And then suddenly you're rewarded, And I think in my opinion, one thing that has helped make community yoga initiatives so incredibly successful is the versatility of teaching you offer. That's a foundation that I myself have incorporated in this channel alone. And I want to be able to provide that option-based learning for people to not be locked into one style. How did you craft that aspect of Community Yoga Initiative?
Well, we started teaching chair yoga, so it would be accessible to more people, which was really fantastic. And, people kind of joked at me, for being a chair yoga teacher at first, like, why are you doing that? That's not like the real yoga. Like, what are you doing? And, you'd be surprised unless you try it, like how yogic chair yoga can be. Yoga to me isn't just the asana and certain poses. It's not a geometric precision, so maybe that's some people's idea of what yoga is, but that's not what it is to me. But there are ways that we can do those poses in a chair that are really beneficial for people, that people really feel good when they're doing it. And so to offer something like that has been just a blessing. So I, again, just word of mouth, friends were like, hey, have you heard of chair yoga? And I'm like, well, no, what is that? What do you do? And do you want to go take a course? Do you want to go get certified in it? And so the next thing you know, my friend Allison and I are taking a course and we're getting certified in chair yoga. And then the next thing you know, I'm just like teaching it. I don't even really know how it happened. Like it just did. And I love it. And every time I teach it, I don't even really consider myself a teacher in that way. I just consider myself just more a facilitator, and just that we're all doing it as a group, and it's all the energy of the group that's working with each other to make it a class or a session. So, but with chair yoga, it's been really a wonderful practice to bring people who might be a little hesitant about the practice, or they might be in a workspace. We've been partnering with the Alzheimer's Association. We've had some of people that belong to that organization attend our Wednesday night classes, and it feels really good, and they really seem to enjoy it.
Wow.
All sorts of groups that might not experience yoga in a studio type setting that can come enjoy yoga with us.
Yeah, you really done a lot in providing a safe space for everyone, and that is very noble in a way. So you are familiar with a lot of styles of yoga. You've seen a lot from chair yoga. I know Community Yoga Initiative offers things like Qigong, meditation, breath work exercises. Taking all that you know and all that you've experienced, what would you say yoga means to you?
To me, I would say yoga means an exploration of life's unfolding. It's so much more than the poses to me. It's really bringing a courageous and radical honesty to what is, being able to see clearly what is going on, whether it's with our bodies, with our emotions, with our thoughts, and to meet what's going on with a measure of love, if possible. And to me, that's what yoga is for me right now, right? But it's a constant unfolding. Yoga to me is that experiential unfolding of life, and witnessing it as clearly as possible. So when it comes to teaching, I think that can be, shared in a chair or on a mat, because you're experiencing your body, right? You're experiencing your emotions, your thoughts, whether it's in meditation or whether it's in an asana practice. But to me, that is the yoga practice, is clearly seeing what is and meeting whatever is with love as much as we can, as much as humanly possible. And I think what I love about that in yoga is that it reminds me of the connectedness of everything. And it reminds me of the impermanence of everything. So to me, that is the practice.
Those are two huge lessons that can be incredibly painful to learn. Maybe the impermanence I find to be slightly more painful of a lesson to endure than the connection. That's kind of liberating to realize, oh my gosh, that tree is me and I am that and you and everything. That's kind of like, oh, it's really good, right? Impermanence, maybe not so much, but how did you find yoga? How did that journey start for you?
I was lucky to find the yoga when I was pregnant. So I was pregnant with our first daughter, Peyton, and I was looking to do some sort of like, what I thought was gentle exercise. To me at that time, yoga was not this being able to see things clearly to me what it is. It didn't mean that to me. Yoga meant like I needed to get some exercise that would be beneficial to my baby in a way that would be healthful. And so I found a yoga class, which I didn't find welcoming at all. Actually, I had a very terrible experience. I
Oh
walked
no.
into a yoga class for the first time and felt very unwelcomed and couldn't do the poses. And we were doing eagle arms and eagle legs, and I was pregnant, and I was like, not able to balance well. And the teacher was not very sympathetic. And I was kind of crushed, actually. Like that was like my first in-person yoga experience. Maybe that's where the CYI really had its, the origins, was from that experience. So then I got a video, and it was actually a very devotional type of yoga video. I didn't know anything about yoga, but it was this like what we would call like a bhakti yoga video. I had no idea it was like a bhakti devotional. I just thought I don't even know how I got it. Like I ended up with this video, and so I just did it at home. It was this slow, beautiful, gentle stretching of yoga that I did while I was pregnant. And it was in a very devotional way. And I just loved it. I just absolutely loved it. So I have my daughter to thank to getting started in yoga. And that was like over, 20 years ago. So for 2 decades, then I've been practicing, but that's how I got into the yoga.
Wow.
From being pregnant. Yeah.
There's no doubt that.
And that's what's so beautiful about yoga is it evolved. It evolved for me to that physical practice of just wanting that health and well-being while being pregnant. And then after I had 2 daughters, then I went into a more energetic kind of practice, a more vitalizing kind of yoga practice, very physical, very asana based for many years. And I also love that just as much. Experiencing the energy of that was fantastic. And then eventually, I think I moved more into a meditative type of yoga. And that to me is the core of the practice for me right now. And I don't know, maybe that will change too.
Of course, I'm sure it will. It sounds like it maneuvers and shifts every once in a while, which is good because I myself can speak that a lot of things in life, I just kind of latch onto. And I know you share that from literature to studies to conversations, it kind of quickly becomes your whole life. And there's a lot of things in my life that I've latched onto, if you may, and quickly was like consuming it all and was like, okay, I'm full, like I'm bored of this now. I don't see where this can continue in another direction that's fulfilling. Yoga is the opposite of that. Yoga is one of the few things that you can actually continue to evolve with just because of the various styles and depths and opportunities.
I could not agree more. I just want to give a big rah-rah for yoga in that way. I totally feel the same. And one way that I like to say that is that yoga meets us where we are. It gives us what we need when we need it. And so it's like, it does. And that's why it's so beautiful about yoga. It's like, it's going to offer you whatever you are needing and whatever you can, see and feel and hear in your space and time. So that is a really magical thing about yoga. My friend Inga has a shirt, or is going to get a shirt. It says "Yoga is magic," and that's like I think the new mantra, like for us right now this week. Anyway.
Totally, I love that. Maybe those shirts can be a huge hit.
Yeah.
Have your own yoga line. That'd be awesome.
Yoga is magic.
Yoga is magic. So speaking of various styles, and since you touched on the importance of meditation and how it's become your thing, I know you personally well enough to know that Vipassana is something that you've been very passionate about in the past and you've actually gone through an experience of. Would you care to touch on a little bit about that and what it is?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about Vipassana. But maybe I'll talk a little bit how I started in meditation. So
okay, perfect.
First, just to give that background, I really didn't have any kind of teacher in meditation. It was kind of like my own self-taught way of meditating. And I started meditating a lot after my father died. I really was looking for something. I think that people come to yoga and meditation a lot of times because they're looking for something, and what they're looking for is to feel better. And I know what that is because I felt that same way. And when my father died, I looked to meditation, I think, to feel better. And the meditation at the time that I practiced, I was introduced on a retreat I was at in Arizona to metta meditation, or loving kindness meditation. And the woman who introduced it to me, I just was blown away by it. It was an experience that she touched my heart, the practice touched my heart, and it just stuck. And it just stuck. Like, and I had been introduced to other types of meditation, you know, kind of like a mindfulness practice and breath awareness and things like that. I had a little bit of experience with that, but the loving kindness meditation just stuck, and I couldn't make it unstick. And so I practiced that a lot, and I practiced it for very consistently for 12 years before I went to Vipassana. And the metta practice is a prayerful practice. It's a prayerful practice of offering love and cultivating the feelings of love and kindness, um, you know, to people who come before us and who've taught us, and to ourselves, also to our loved ones, and to those who are hard for us to love. So was such a beautiful practice, and it was my core meditation practice for a long time. And in the Vipassana world, it's kind of backwards to start with metta. Like, so I was like, so then I go to Vipassana, and you learn. So in Vipassana, you learn breath, this awareness of breath. They focus on that, anapana, focus on the breath meditation, and then you kind of move into body sensations, and that's kind of the basic premise. And to put in an overly simplistic, very reductionistic way, that's what is taught. And metta is also introduced as like a third prong to that, but at the end, and in the Pali language, the teacher that I went to, so no one can really understand it. So like you get this chanting in the Pali language of metta as like the third component of this Vipassana experience, but no one can really understand it. So when you talk to a lot of Vipassana meditators who haven't done loving kindness or metta at all, it's like the, you know, like the redheaded stepchild or whatever, you know, that doesn't get any attention. And it's really lost, and it's backwards. Like they say, you know, unless you're doing the breathing, and I mean, some people say, unless you do the breathing, unless you're doing the sensations, are you ready to practice metta? Well, I was like, well, you know, I've been practicing metta for 12 years. So this is just how
possible.
Yeah, I know. This is my practice. And so anyway, but Vipassana was a beautiful complement to the metta practice. And I had no clue at all what a beautiful compliment it would be to the metta. I was totally surprised. I had no expectation of what would happen during the retreat. And the Vipassana practice is a very deliberate practice. There's a system to it. There's like a methodology to it. It involves a lot of sitting, a lot of meditating over a lot of hours in a very specific way. And it was hugely beneficial. And a very amazing complement to the metta practice that I already had practiced. So now, and I encourage people to, you know, see meditation as an exploration of ourselves, you know? And so by learning the Vipassana meditation and kind of combining it even, you know, with this metta that I'd already practiced, I have this weird hybrid amalgamation of like way that I practice that I find very beneficial, you know, and that I really enjoy and I find really helpful. It can be very hard at times, but again, for that idea of like being able to see things clearly, it has been very helpful, you know. But yeah, so that's my Vipassana experience. I don't know if that.
No, that's perfect. So that's how you got there. That's what it did to you. What is Vipassana? Tell me what someone can expect on a Google search.
Yeah, so it's a debate, right? What is the Vipassana is debatable, actually. But the classic answer is that it's abiding awareness. It's an abiding awareness of what is happening and what is. Some people call it insight meditation. People argue about what the Buddha said about it and what, you know, Goenka says about it. And I'm not really into all the arguments over what it is. But how I understand it is like, is this awareness, this abiding awareness of what's happening? So when, and it starts by, you know, being aware of pranic activity. So, you know, the energy of our bodies, you know, the breath of our bodies, and starting with that. So you start, you know, with the breath, but eventually you get to the point where you're really becoming aware of subtler and subtler and subtler sensations. And in doing so, you notice, you know, you're able to notice things about your body, about your emotions, and about your mind. And you're also able to notice those, I mean, we can call them eternal truths or just things that we value. ideas that we find important, and the ideas that I find important and that always come up are impermanence and interconnectedness. And so when we practice, that comes up as well, because that, 1 minute I might be having a pain, and then that pain goes away. Or I'm having a strong emotion, and then I notice that that emotion maybe, fluctuates. And so it's a metaphor in our life, that's how life works, that impermanence of it all. Or the interconnectedness. One reason why I like to meditate is I do feel like more connected to things that are important to me, to myself. When I practice metta, I feel very connected to others and the world, to nature, to the things that are seen and unseen. So you get the truth of, interconnectedness, and if you don't want to call it a truth, you can just call it an ideas that we like,
Yeah. That's awesome. So it's a system set up so that you can kind of discover how pranic energy moves through the body and discover what that means for you in your life. Is it typically something people do at home, or is it something people have to travel to and attend? For how long? How does that look?
Okay, well, so Goenka started these programs that require a 10-day sit period. So if you go to that kind of a Vipassana retreat, a Goenka retreat is what they're referred to as, then they require a first-time student to sit for 10 days. It's a silent retreat, no talking. It was very hard for me to, abide by that rule. There's lots of ways you can kind of communicate with your eyes and face and smile, and you're just really not supposed to communicate at all with anyone there during the 10 days. And it's tricky, it's tough, no input, no books, no writing. I may have breached that rule as well. But because it's so hard, it's hard just to be with your mind, it's hard just to be with yourself, and that's why people don't do it. But the classic way to learn it is to go to retreats and to go over and over as a practice, and then to serve at these retreats. But there's other places like Spirit Rock or Insight Meditation Society. Jack Kornfield and Tara Brock run Vipassana type courses that are similar. So you can go and learn that technique in a retreat setting. I don't know that it necessarily has to be a retreat setting, but I can tell you that for me, it was a transformative thing to do in a retreat setting. So there is so much value in that, because you do things over and over and over and over and over. You can learn so much by the repetitive act of doing things over and over and just allowing to whatever arise. And when do we ever get to do that? I mean, when you're meditating, 5 to 10 hours a day, you don't have control. Like, you know what I mean? You can't build in your distractions that we so much want to when things are getting hard. I mean, you just kind of have to just be there, and it's difficult. But it's incredible. It's an incredible way to really learn something about yourself.
It's amazing. Well, it sounds like it did teach you so much, and you've been able to harness those teachings and provide them to people, and in subtle ways and maybe more obvious ways, like speaking on it in this regard. So thank you for that. It's been super helpful, and I know the world appreciates it as well, because your light shines so bright in everything you do. What is next for you in yoga? Do you have anything lined up? Any secret moves you're working on?
Well, I'm learning to play the harmonium, so I'm pretty excited about that. My goals are, kind of just in front of me and not that huge. I'm also working, I was recently hired on to be a yoga facilitator for the Prison Yoga Project. And so I'm really actually very excited about that. And unfortunately, during COVID, we aren't able to go inside the correctional facilities at this time, but we're working on a correspondence course. It's brand new. It hasn't been enrolled yet. I'm hoping that it'll be enrolled in the spring and that we don't have to wait for summer of 2021. But the idea is that participants will be given videos and materials and then assignments to complete. And then I'll help facilitate like the assignment feedback and things like that. So that's exciting. So I'm hoping that that's going to happen in the spring. And then let's see what else. I'm taking a course on meditation so I can learn how to facilitate it better. Because, you know, there's one thing to, you know, being able to practice yourself and like what works for you, and then being able to like express how to do that. You know, it's like a whole other thing. And it's kind of scary. You know, you don't want to, you know, it's important, I think, as you know, people who have a practice to know what not to share, you know, sometimes. And so I'm learning. So I'm constantly learning. I love to learn. I feel like life is the teacher. But I am taking this course on meditation, and it's a 2-year program. So I'm knee deep in learning how to facilitate meditation in ways that are most helpful and most sensitive and most inclusive. So I'm learning a lot. So those things are on the horizon, I guess. So
Wow.
I always hoped to share meditation in maybe a hospital setting. I haven't done that yet. One of the reasons why I took yoga teacher training, and the same reason why I'm doing this meditation training, is I thought facilitating for people who might be facing like chronic illness, facilitating breath work and facilitating movement in yoga might be beneficial to them. From my own personal experience, I've had family members who suffered with chronic illness, and one of the things that was most beneficial was learning how to breathe, or being able to access the breath. I mean, obviously they know how to breathe. They didn't have to learn how to breathe, but being able to access the breath in a way that could connect them with the present moment, because thinking about the future was way too hard with what they were dealing with. And thinking about the past, you know, wasn't so great either. You know, so being able to harness the breath and be able to use the breath as a vehicle for the present has been really powerful in my life and what I've seen for others. So that's something that I always wanted to share, you know, and but share in a way that you know, was beneficial, and it wasn't, you know, I still have a lot to learn in sharing that, is I guess what I'm trying to say.
Of course, and that'll be ongoing. One thing I think is really beautiful is my most recent guest, the interview is going to be featured tomorrow, is with Robert Sturman, who is an incredible promoter he's a photographer. He's helped the whole process of Prison Yoga Project. So it is so wonderful to hear that you are going to be a part of that great organization, helping to spread love and doing it from your heart space. So
the fact that you're connected with Robert and that triangle right there is just classic. It's just, of course, that would be, you know.
Yeah. It's undeniable. Those are when it's so obvious. It's like, okay, yeah, something good is in the works, and it's just undeniable, you know.
Yeah.
So you said, I want to take a step back, and I want to offer you the ability to speak on maybe a couple simple tips on how people can breathe to connect to the present moment. What are some super simple, basic intro level ways to go about it? Something they can maybe take away from this little short video.
Yeah. Okay. The first thing I would suggest is to not worry about it. To just like, don't be stressed out about it. You know, don't be stressed out about the breath, and like, maybe look at it as an enjoyable thing, a playful thing, you know, something that's a benefit to us. So to not worry about doing it a perfect way, you know, or that there's a right way to do it is the first thing maybe I would suggest. And the second thing I would suggest is to try nose breathing, you know, is to breathe through the nose. And that is the classic way of yogic breathing. There are a few ways of yogic breathing through the mouth, but they're very specific methods of pranayama. But the yogic type of breathing is through the nose, and it's for a reason, because the nose is the filter. It warms the air. It's an antiviral type of action, movement through the nostrils. And it creates an oxygen CO2 balance that's really beneficial from our bodies just by breathing through our nose. So if we close our mouths and just inhale through the nose, And then exhale through the nose. And maybe inhaling with like a little bit more of a length on the inhale breath. And just allow yourself to press the breath out a little longer. And just breathing through the nose, that's where I would start. And I think another thing that can help is to catch the breath, with your hands at your heart and your belly. Like sometimes that can feel really good and a really great way to connect with the breath. So as you're like inhaling through the nose, you can actually feel the breath move in your body. It's such a beautiful thing. It's like, oh my God, it's such a sense of aliveness, right? Like the breath just moves, like the heart moves into your hand. You can just feel the breath move into your hand at your heart center. And if your breath is really deep down in your belly, you can feel the belly move into your hand too on the inhale. And you can kind of feel everything just kind of go towards the spine on the exhale. So just simply like catching your breath, feeling that pranic movement, feeling that sense of aliveness, such a benefit.
It's so simple, it's so healing, and it takes, that could have been 45 seconds of simple instruction, but I felt peaceful. I felt more calm.
Yeah.
Think about if we do that before going into an interview or before going into a work day or a stressful conversation with a spouse, anything.
Right.
That's so useful.
That's a really good point about the stressful conversation. I'm a talker. I can be quiet too, but I'm really a talker. And so really reminding ourselves just to stop talking and breathing is maybe some good advice too. But I know we're talking, this is like a talking space.
Yeah, you're supposed to come here and talk today, so talk all you want. That's awesome. So we kind of touched on it a little bit when you told us about what yoga meant to you, but yeah. I want to ask a little bit more of a focused question. Why is yoga so important in this day and age? And why do you see it being so well received by so many people from so many places?
I feel like yoga helps us feel, I think it helps us feel alive. That's what I notice when I'm teaching or when I'm facilitating the yoga class. What I notice is people come in and it's like they've disconnected from their aliveness. It's like they're numbed out from everything, from all of it, from the overdoing, from the avoiding, from all of it. And so to me, I think that when people come into a yoga class, what I notice is just them lighting up into aliveness, like actually connecting with the energies of their body and enjoying that connection usually, for the most part. It's not always true, but for the most part. And so, yeah, I think like that's what yoga does, like on a big scale, like in classes, what I've noticed. It does so much, right? It meets us where we are, but like that feeling of being alive. So that's why I think yoga is important. Like, because everything fails, right? Like everything dies, like we're all, so while we're here, why not feel alive and feel that vitality as best we can? And I think yoga is like magic with that, like yoga is like, what else makes us feel more alive? There's probably a lot of things, but this is a really healthy thing.
Exactly. I know a lot of adventure, adrenaline pumping sports and skydiving and mountain biking can make you feel alive, but it also makes you risk a lot more.
Right. Yeah. So I think yoga is important to feel alive. But I would also say, I think, again, why I practice or what is unfolding for me with yoga now is there is a potential for yoga to bring clarity. Sometimes, Ty, I'll practice, like, I don't even know how I'm feeling. I'm like mixed up. I'm like running around. I'm doing things. I'm going from here to there. And I'll meditate or do yoga. And I'm actually like, oh, wow, like I'm feeling like sad. Like I didn't even know that I was feeling sad because I was like distracted with all like my projects or something like that, or, you know. And so what happens is it's that pause, right? It's that pause so we can get clarity about like how we're feeling and how we're thinking. Or, you know, like I didn't know I was having those thoughts, you know, because I was, you know, just distracted by this creative project I was doing, or taking care of this or that, or, you know, whatever, into other people's business. I mean, aren't we doing that so much, right? We're so concerned about the drama of life and everyone else's stuff, and like, well, how about our own stuff? And so I think there's a benefit in yoga to, you know, take care of what's going on and to be able to really witness and see and be in touch with, you know, our thoughts and emotions. And I think it's hugely a benefit. I think a lot of times, you know, maybe people have a sense of anger. Maybe they walk around and they're, you know, really grumpy. I mean, I've been, you know, I have done this. But really, where's that coming from? You know, where's that grumpiness coming from? It's coming from sadness, maybe. You know, and if you don't know where it's coming from, you can't identify, you don't even know how you feel, then how are you supposed to even address what that is? And so that to me is the power of yoga, you know. So you come in, you feel good, it gives you like an instant, like it can, right? Give you such a connectedness to your body and a connectedness to energy. But really, when you're practicing, I mean, to really be able to understand like what emotions you're having and what thoughts you're having and where you're at, like what a gift that is.
Yeah.
For everybody. I mean, if everyone were to do that.
Yeah, and having that space to observe a lot in that meditation, that in my opinion, that recognition of, okay, now I'm going to set aside time to meditate, habitually forms micro abilities to say, okay, now I'm going to pause before I respond to that comment that obviously triggered me.
Right.
And that will undoubtedly make the world such a more harmonious and peaceful place if people can just give themselves a breath when they feel themselves getting upset. And that's challenging, but meditation can help. So I feel you on what you said, and I think that I agree 100%.
Yeah, the pause is important.
Mm-hmm. Now, a question I look forward to asking all my lovely guests that come on here towards the end of the interviews is something I'm very excited to ask you, because I know you're going to hit them with a good list. What are some literature, books, or interviews, or movies, or talks, or people that has absolutely defined, shifted, and made you flourish on your path?
It's such a hard question. I mean, if you could see what I'm sitting around right now, you would just see piles of books, because, you know, I'm like, that's like my guilty pleasure.
I know. That's why I know you're going to be a great resource.
Gosh, books are hard. So I'm going to go, let me start with like a film. I recently watched Becoming Nobody. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's a movie about the life of Ram Dass. And I highly recommend it because there's just a sweetness and humor that he brings to the recognition of our humanness. So I think that is something really worth watching. He kind of helps us understand our roles and disguises, and how we play those roles and disguises in life in a very kind of loving and humorous way. So, and how those roles can be a burden, you know, and how to let go. And so the whole idea is to become nobody, you know, to recognize all the layers that we put on ourselves for whatever reason, and then to let go of those things. So I guess that would be my recommendation. And as far as books, this is so tough. I think, you know, Ty, you're gonna be surprised at this, but I would say I would recommend a book that's not in print anymore, by an author that we both know, who's a friend of ours. And it's Scott Miller's book called Yogic Love. I don't know if you've read it. But in that book, there's a lot of layers, as you might expect. But I think what I like most about certain parts of the book is like the expression of a true appreciation for what yoga is, and a true love for the bigness of what yoga is. And Scott expresses it really beautifully. So I would highly recommend that book. I think that could be a life-changing book for anyone who can find it. And if anyone wants it, I might have a resource that I could help you with. A copy. It's a great book.
Yes, we'll have to see if we can get some printed or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. It's out of print now, but it might be some old copies that we could get somehow.
Awesome. Well, anything else in the last closing that you wish to channel and give love to anybody who may be listening in this current moment?
Well, I just want to thank you, Ty. I want to thank you for all that you give to so many people through these offerings of yoga and these interviews. And I want to thank you for being a person in my life that I learned a lot from. I appreciate your tenacity. I appreciate your loving ways of being with people. You're the kind of person that, never talks badly about anybody. You've always got a kind word to say. You're fearless in trying new things, and you love big. You love the biggest. You're one of the biggest. You love bigger than most people I know. And so I just want to express my appreciation for you. I learn a lot from you in that way. And so just thank you. I appreciate it. And thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Kristin. Your words are so touching. I appreciate you. Thank you for sharing your teachings. I know they're going to speak to a lot of people, and looking forward to maybe having you on for some more videos, maybe some more metta meditations. And as you continue this development through your meditation course practice, I think you're going to be an abundant source of greatness. And I really hope to continue to facilitate that so the world can have a window into that you are. So thank you. So much love.
Thanks, Ty.
Hey everybody, really hope you enjoyed that talk. It was beautiful to have that experience with that shared guest. We have a lot of very useful information in the description section below, so be sure to check it out. I've also linked any and all videos with that individual in the description below, so check those out as well. It's an honor to bring this footage to you, and I hope you can come back and continue to deepen your practice. Namaste.